G'day guys and gal, if this video title seems familiar for the OGs of you out there, I did actually make a Legion of the Damned video almost 7 years ago. It was shit, didn't have 100% accurate lore, and I think I also said some seriously fucked up shit because it was demonetized and privated, which for me means I may have gone a bit too hard on it. However, it also means there's a gap in the market for a new improved Legion of the Damned video, featuring better, more up-to-date lore, better narration, and less slurs. But don't worry, I'll keep in some spice because there's no place hotter than the scrotum of a damned Legionnaire. Before we get started, speaking of spice, hold on to your dick, because we're bringing back the Burning Hand of Vengeance, who is live right now. Not only that, but I'm also launching 3 damned Legionnaires, all of whom feature cross-compatible pieces with each other for more customizability, as well as the Hell Rider of the Damned. Combining this with the Burning Ancient of Vengeance and even the Cyber Zombie, and you end up with a big fat force of awesome damned Legionnaires. The Legion of the Damned are one of the coolest factions with the most neglected models. Until today. Although the Burning Hand is the king of this launch and actually features a new power pack version, which is a lot easier to deal with, don't worry guys, you can still get the diorama version, my favorite of the new launch is the Hell Rider. This model is so peak. Like, even if you don't want a damned Legion army, you still gotta pick him up. To save you money and make it easier, I've bundled up various damned forces, but you can still buy all the models individually. No gatekeeping from me. This is one of our biggest and best launches. Also, I recently discovered that to appease OH&S regulation, I had to spend $60,000 upgrading my warehouse. So yeah, we could really use the extra cash right now. No better time to buy, link is below. Today we'll go over the Legion of the Damned, discussing their confusing origin story, what their powers are, their best moments from the lore, and basically anything you've ever wanted to know about them. Let's get into it. The origins of the Legion of the Damned are pretty confusing. Some people think they were born during the War in the Webway, when the Emperor summoned forth Ferris and the betrayed dead of Isfahan as fiery demons to smite the forces of chaos in an act of pure righteous wrath. Others believe they were once the Firehawks, a loyalist chapter who got infected by a warp virus which eventually turned them into the Legion. Whilst others believe they are the most wrathful and unjustly slain of the Emperor's angels, their rage being so pure that the Emperor notices them in death and allows them to return in a new fiery demonic form. Some people believe it is all of these combined. Now, the diverse opinions on their origins isn't because some people are fucking retarded and don't know how to read, it's more so GW having a laugh and dropping hints that all link to potential origins, some hints being very on the nose. Now, some may look at that and say, well, it's supposed to be a mystery, so why even ask? However, when you're as autistic as I am and have spent the amount of time with 40k lore that I have, you can begin to actually see a pretty clear picture from all the clues. Let's now go through each potential origin, check out its validity, and how it ties into the truth of where the fuck these fiery boys come from. The first theory is they emerged during the War in the Webway. As a bit of a War in the Webway TLDR, the Custodians were falling back and were about to be killed by the final push of the demons. Then the Emperor appeared and he was in extremely bad mood. Not only did he go Super Saiyan and begin licking everyone, but he also summoned forth a fiery host of undead marines, led by the fiery undead avatar of Ferris Manus. The Legion with Ferris were representing the fallen at Isfahan, those who had been unjustly betrayed and slain by their brothers. Now, it's not entirely clear if the Emperor literally summoned their souls from the warp for this battle, or he created representations of them using his own power, but the result was the same. A legion of burning, vengeful space marine monsters killing demons. A Legion of the Damned, some may say. Now, the author of this scene has actually said he didn't intentionally mean for this to be the Legion of the Damned, and it wasn't discussed in the writer's room. However, he likes the idea and theory of this being their potential origin, so he hasn't completely shot it down. It's just that it wasn't the original intention. Then there is the Firehawks theory. The Firehawks were a loyalist chapter who, en route to a war zone, were lost in a vicious warp storm. All of their menials and crew died, 80% of their chapter died, and all ships were lost by one, with 200 marines and one single battle barge escaping the warp. However, they had contracted a warp contagion which caused their skin to blacken and even fall off, as their armor cracked and this inner warp fire began to consume them. Now, GW has kept this origin theory alive, especially in older lore, as sometimes when the Legion of the Damned would arrive at a battle zone, they would plant a burnt flag which would actually end up being an old Firehawk flag. Likewise, sometimes they would engage in space battles on board the last remaining Firehawk ship. Those sort of breadcrumbs. I do find the Firehawk origin by itself kinda shit though. Why would a warp contagion not only keep these guys loyalists, but also give them free access to use the warp without issue, allowing them to manifest whenever and wherever during mankind's greatest needs? Seems a little too handy for a coincidence. Likewise, the Legion of the Damned do actually sustain pretty heavy casualties in battle, as they just teleport into the worst areas and war zones, and since they are flaming zombie ghosts, they don't take cover or anything, they just kinda walk at the enemy. Since they've been around for over 1,000 years by this point and have appeared on multiple battlefields at once, 200 seems to be a poor number to give them. Now yes, they do have the Animus Malorum, which is a skull of an unnamed Space Marine hero which can be used to create more Legionnaires, which does fill that plot hole nicely. However, there are still so many questions, like why is this warp contagion, out of the countless that negatively affect the Imperium, so beneficial to the Imperium? If Nurgle didn't create it, who did? Why are they so anti-chaos and impossible to corrupt if it's all just random? These questions are more easily answered by the Emperor's loyalist demon theory. The Emperor can have his demons, living saints for example. However, the way the Emperor's demons work is very different to how Chaos demons work. So the Emperor isn't very cohesive and his plans are very hard to identify. However, he kinda acts like a nexus where all Imperial faith and fervor bleeds into. Think of him like a well, and the water poured into the well to be the collective belief in him as a god by the Imperium. Now, he cannot just throw his water, which is a metaphor for his power, at people, because he is a well and wells don't have arms. However, if someone has the will to find the well and drink from it, they can gain power from it. For living saints, they're so pure and faithful that they can tap into the Emperor's power. It's not a case of the Emperor seeking them out and imbuing them with power, if that makes sense. On top of that, the Emperor cannot shave off shards of himself that become demons. Instead, a loyalist demon is someone who was originally mortal and has been infused with the warp, i.e. a living saint or a damned legionnaire. This theory goes that there are a number of Space Marines who are especially righteous and wrathful, who are just unjustly slain before their time and their souls burn with the desire for vengeance. Because of this, their souls are infused with the Emperor's wrath and power and return as the Legion of the Damned. Then to expand their numbers further, they would use the Animus Malorum. However, occasionally, some especially legendary Space Marines would still be chosen by the Emperor and join the Legion of the Damned without the Animus Malorum, which is what happened to Remus Ventanus. Remus was a legendary Ultramarine hero during the Heresy. 10,000 years after his death, his spirit would return during a battle taking place around his tomb, with the Legion of the Damned appearing to help him. During the battle, his armor blackened and started to look less like Ultramarine and more like Legion of the Damned. He would save the day, before then fading away alongside the Legion, implying that he had now joined them. So we have this force of undead warp Space Marines who are extremely loyal, who can navigate the warp with extreme ease, appearing whenever and wherever they are needed. They thrive when the warp is present, they struggle when the warp is suppressed. They also seem to have a lot of Firehawk relics and could have appeared during the war in the Webway in some capacity. So what the fuck is their origins? Well, in my educated opinion, it's a mix of everything. The Firehawk origin cannot be ignored, but by itself it's a bit useless. I believe that the warp contagion was planted in the warp, whether deliberate or accidental, by the Emperor when he first summoned forth the first incarnation of the Damned during the war in the Webway. The contagion was imbued with the Emperor's holy wrath, so when the Firehawks were lost and infused with it, either by chance or design, it gave them the wrath of the Emperor, turning them into his loyalist demons. This allows them to call the warp home and also allows them to sense when the Imperium is in need of them. Although the original 200 were Firehawks, they are now a mix of every chapter and legion, as they have been either recruiting worthy souls like Remus or using the Animus Malorum. Thus the Firehawk references are mostly gone, not because of a retcon, but because the Damned have been heavily diluted by new recruits. So they were Firehawks, infected by a holy Emperor virus, becoming these undead fiery loyalist demons who serve the Emperor and mankind. That's my take and headcanon, but what can they actually do and what have they done? Damned Legionnaires are significantly stronger and more durable than normal Space Marines. They're also very difficult to kill. If they bring the Animus Malorum into battle, they become borderline unstoppable, as it can drain the souls of enemies and use those souls to revive and heal down Legionnaires. Their bolts are a special warp explosive type, dealing extra fire damage, and while they can and do manifest to fight any of the Imperium's foes, including Orcs, Eldar, and even Tau, they generally appear against Chaos, as Chaos is considered the greatest threat to the Imperium. Their strategy is generally to just appear in some kind of overpowered deep strike, either behind the enemy as a hammer and anvil or on a specific defense point. As soon as their work is done, they will fade back into the warp. In the lore itself, they first appear at the start of the 40th millennium. An Emperor's Children warband called the Flawless Host declared their intention to invade a mining world because it was ugly. The people of the world resisted valiantly, however could not hope to beat the Chaos Space Marines. Between the people's bravery and the degeneracy of the Traitor Marines, the Legion chose to engage in their first battle. They appeared and began fighting back, killing many traitors. The traitors in turn summoned their demonic allies and drove the Legion back. However, this is when the traitors discovered something unfortunate. The longer a Legion of the Damned Marine fights in real space, the more unstable they become. They begin igniting with a righteous flame as they go berserk. They fight in this godlike war state for a short while, before then exploding and killing everything heretical around them. The Flawless Host, despite being about to win, were now suffering disfiguring burns and thus retreated, as they can't really call themselves the Flawless Host if they end up looking like a burn victim ward. During the battle, the Legionnaires exploding also managed to uncover and reveal deep adamantine deposits in the world, increasing its value to the Imperium by orders of magnitude. So they clapped some traitor sluts, saved a brave world, and made the Imperium a bunch of money. good shit. Legion of the Damned are actually quite funny. There was an Imperial weapons testing world that the Tyranids invaded, which ended up not being a great call, as some of the most fucking hectic experimental weapons were being used, which killed shitloads of Nids. However, as the world was for testing the weapons, not for storing their ammo or arming armies, they soon started running low on ammo. As they were about to be overrun, the Legion arrived and drove back the Nids, allowing the world to get a few more experimental guns online to drive the Tyranids from their world. Case in point, the Legion think guns are cool. Soon after this, in rather strange lore, the Legion decided to help the Invaders chapter attack a craft world for no apparent reason. This craft world had been hunting Tyranid fleets, not attacking Imperial worlds, yet the Legion helped invade it, took out the craft world's avatar of Cain, and then destroyed it, leaving the craft world a lifeless husk. In return, the Eldar destroyed the Invaders chapter's homeworld, so overall just an L for both factions for no apparent gain that I'm aware of. Now GW wanted the Legion of the Damned to have fought every single faction, and they also wanted the Legion to be extremely cool, so the Legion basically became plot armor, as they would manifest to save Chief Librarian Tigurius from the Orcs, and then appear and save Helbrecht from the Dark Eldar. They also save the Iron Snakes from the Tau, so they are like directly responsible for some of the greatest heroes of the Imperium still being alive. In late M41, during all the fall of Cadia and Guilliman resurrection stuff, the Legion became extremely active. They saved the Phalanx from being overrun by chaos, they helped take out Abaddon's Blackstone Fortress, they helped Guilliman's Terran Crusade get back to Terra, and when the Great Rift opened, the increased warp activity in the galaxy massively buffed them and allowed them to manifest on hundreds of planets simultaneously to drive back chaos. They continue their intense involvement, currently taking part in hotly contested war zones. Seeing the Legion of the Damned used to be a very rare occurrence, however now it has become more regular, as the increased demands of their attention combined with the increased warp activity has them busy as ever. Although there is still a lot of mystery of their true nature, one thing we can say for certain is that they are cool as fuck. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up the Damned Legion models. I recommend getting the entire pack, as you save a shitload of money, but I'm not your dad, get whatever you want. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.